Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our monthly webinar. Can you believe it? It's already September. Time really flies by so quickly. And tonight is a very, very special night where we are bringing in not only an expert, a well-known and worldwide well-known a mentor, a teacher, a coach, an amazing trainer and a facilitator in the world of coaching, who established one of the strongest schools in the world, Erickson International School. Let me introduce Marilyn in brief. There's a lot to say about Marilyn, but let me say, Marilyn is the president of Erickson Coaching International, a solution-focused coaching. She's a developer of the solution-focused coaching for 25 years, 40 years of coaching trainers teaching, and team coaching in 30 countries. Marilyn also taught at least 150 plus in 35 different corporations. Welcome, Marilyn. We're very, very happy to have you here. And Paul also is with us as in assisting to Marilyn and joining us in this wonderful webinar. Welcome both.
Thank you. Thank you. Paul Gosson is also a long-term team coach for practically the whole time we've been doing team coaching around the world, with at least 300 to 500 coaching events. And he's supervised big team coaching rollouts. So the two of us give you a lot of expertise on this area. Okay, so what is our purpose here? We've got basically an hour of talking and then half an hour of discussion and questions. So please write down your questions, everyone. And please engage in the chat. Or if you don't understand something, feel free to say, whoo, I need to understand that better. My aim is to make things as clear as possible. The purpose of this particular introduction is to talk about team coaching in the world today. What's happening with corporations with team coaching. So we'll go into the big picture overview. We'll secondly talk about what skills and tools people need to develop to become a strong team coach, because they're quite different from regular coaching and even online coaching. And we'll look at how does online team coaching differ from on-site team coaching, which is a whole other area. It's another big area of skill development that's quite major. So we've only got an hour to do this. So we're going to do what I call skipping a stone over a pond. You know how you have to throw the stone in such a way that it just goes from topic to topic quickly. And we invite your further participation, engagement, and your questions. So why team coaching in corporations? This is a big question. And it's a major one because right now in the world, team coaching is looking at a situation where we're looking at a situation where 70% of the big corporations of the world are failing, according to McKinsey. I don't know if you know that, but their general revenues have been going down, not just through COVID, but through lots of other squeezes. And one of the squeezes is that change management is really needed. More different kinds of services are needed. They need to develop more expert teams to develop services and products. How am I doing? Is that English too fast or is this comfortable?
So far, so good. It's very, very comfortable. Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at key types of teams that are needed in corporations today, because people need to see progress in their companies. And the current situation has been dismal. Of course, there's the big winners, the Googles, the Apples, etc., the Teslas, etc. But the smaller players, and they're not much smaller, actually, there's a lot of big corporations, are not succeeding where in fact they could. Now, why team coaching to address this? That's a good question. And I say it is one of the important keys to make the difference. Well, first of all, it increases the emotional intelligence of people a lot. Now, Rita can tell you a lot about EQ. She teaches good courses on emotional intelligence, but it's critical for people to develop heart connection to the people who are working with them, and real overview connection of the progress people are making, the ability to support them in making that progress, and to give people a real vision around the company. Team coaching makes a big difference. So IQ gets multiplied exponentially, because when a team works together, the intelligence of each member gets linked together, and people take on the broader point of view of some of their team members. They learn how to think from different perspectives, and they learn how to really compile and do effective decision-making, discover effective dialogue. They learn cross-functional thinking. And this increases individual intelligence, IQ. It opens up silos, because when people trust that they're part of a team, they are able to share what they know. Often people hold their information in and they run their silo because they protect themselves. They want to be the ones who own that for the company. But with teams, the silos start to disappear. Yes, people can be an expert in one area or another, but they start to share much more as part of the team. And they move to the experience of we. We are this team. We are this company. And they move information across the functional silos. They develop people effectively who will come after them.
Marilyn, can I add a little?
Sure.
So if you think about it from the point of view of an ICF coach, you know, you're a successful professional coach and you're focused on one-on-one coaching. So why would you want to invest time and energy in becoming a team coach? And so one of the big factors with team coaching, especially in a corporate environment, is that it's a very effective way to create a coaching culture or to create change in an organization. So if you're trying to do that with one-on-one coaching, it's a slow process. But when you work with teams, there's a system for making changes in an organization very fast. And so you could talk about an open culture in a company. You could talk about people taking ownership of projects. But probably one of the biggest factors is alignment. So when you have a team that is fully aligned, there's a sense of shared purpose. This allows the team to step into a high performance state. And this is the high performance edge that every company on earth is looking for. And as a team coach, I really encourage you, well, as an ICF coach, I really encourage you to kind of jump in, develop the skills to become a great team coach, and really practice until you get to some mastery. Go ahead, Marilyn.
Great. So Paul is talking about thriving. people need to feel like they're thriving in the company. And teams can be a hothouse for thriving. So a great team that thrives, that continues, that develops, will have a clear purpose. So when the company is building those teams, they need to give the team its own clear purpose. And the team is given the aim to establish a joint vision on how to establish that purpose. So visionary thinking is a huge addition that happens when people dialogue together on teams. They get that vision much more clearly, which creates the future of the company. And they build information sharing practices of one sort or another. Now, for that team to continue to grow and develop, which as ICF coaches, you may know, is one of the big standards of team coaching with the new ICF competencies for team coaching. They not only need a joint vision, they also need to know that this is the team that's going to get it done. So we have a purpose that's going to get it done. And that means we take action together. And there's a strong incentive to develop the needed know-how, the critical know-how that allows that team to do what it's taken on. So may I change the topic for a minute? Because Paul mentioned that we need corporate teams to develop change management. And it's a big topic. To do team management, we need different kinds of team processes. And these require different kinds of team knowledge. So with our Erickson program, we're developing team leaders, team coaching leaders, who can come into a company and work one way with an executive team. Because an executive team is a decision-making team. It's a team that needs to know a lot about fast decision-making. And so speed is important. So executive teams are one group. And then there's two others that are really quite important. For change management, we need really good infrastructure teams. Now, you might call those coordinating teams. Finance, for example, is a coordinating team, but it needs to be able to pass the ball, like on a basketball court, to other teams. So one team needs to understand the functions of other teams. And we also need virtuoso or expert teams. Now, those are usually what's missing in most of the behemoths, the big dinosaurs in the world, the corporate, large corporate businesses, because the company has built its expertise around one product or service. But as times change, and we are in a new frontier, everyone. The times have changed radically during COVID. So as things change, we need these expert teams who can develop new expert systems to add on new products and services, to build competencies so that everyone in the whole organization says, hey, we are thriving, we're contributing to something that's growing, and people want that. They want to know they're in a company that's going to grow and thrive. Now, there's one more group that we need to work with and create team consciousness in, and that's the frontline teams. These are people on the ground doing the day-to-day labor, and they need to be able to share best practice. That's really important. They need to be given the experience that they're contributors, that they have key data that the company needs, and that they can take pride in that. So 4 key areas: executive teams, infrastructure teams, expert teams, and frontline teams all require somewhat different styles of coaching. Team coaching is an expert procedure.
Well, just to add to that, I'd like to invite everyone here as a coach to imagine that at some point in the future, you could develop some real mastery of the team coaching process. So you could kind of fearlessly dive into any organization, work with an executive team or work with a technical team, and assist that team to align, to develop a team vision and a team goal, and to kind of move from a normal or low performance state into a high performance state where people are highly committed, they're producing strong results, and they're dealing with the difficult problems that involve changing an organization. The challenge is complexity. When an organization goes from a fixed business model and transitions to a new business model, there's a ripple effect of change. So assisting teams to be able to deal with that complexity really requires team thinking or team intelligence. And this is the magic of team coaching, is bringing out that strong team problem-solving capability. And so this is another reason why I really encourage you to, step on the path of building mastery of the team coaching skills and, get to know the tools.
Let me add to that. Thank you, Paul, because Paul is really emphasizing team coaching versus, for example, consulting. Lots of great consultants can tell a company what to do, but they don't create that team spirit where the team develops intelligence to make it happen. And that's quite different as well from team mentoring. Lots of leaders have teams that they're working with, but they want to mentor those teams and tell them and show them what's the best path. That works a little bit. It works for a while, but the team itself needs to pick up the ball and carry it. If that big change process is going to get underway, this is where a company either succeeds or fails, because there's only so much top-down learning that a team can do. The rest needs to be bottom up, starting with them, starting with the nitty-gritty of getting certain processes underway, which require thinking through lots of knots and difficulties and figuring out new methodologies, especially with new expert systems. So a coaching style of leadership might be great, where somebody as a leader uses a little team coaching here or some open-ended questions there, thinking that they're doing team coaching. But as long as it's top down, it's not the same as a real team coaching process.
Marilyn, why don't we just open the discussion a little bit for questions or comments, and we can be a little more interactive?
Yeah, right at this point, a question or two would be useful. We're going to go ahead and talk in a little while about what a team coaching conversation needs to be like. And we're going to introduce something called the team coaching arrow. And we're going to give you an overview of some of the elements. I'm going to talk about critical areas of team coaching that a good team coach knows about. So you get that stone over the pond. So let's start now with you. What are your questions so far?
How do you address team norms in your approach?
Okay, well, that's a very important question, and it's part of what we do. We work with two kinds of team rules, if you like. One is the process of following the team meeting structure that we develop, and we use something called the team arrow, which we're going to show you in a little while. The second is what we call a team charter. Now, the team charter may start at the beginning with some basic ground rules from the team coach. You know, be on time, do this, let's share it this way, let's pass the marker, so to speak, especially if we're online. We need to have maybe even a 2-minute moratorium on taking over and running things, because a lot of people in a strong expert team, they're used to being the owners of the ideas, and so they want to run everything. So we are managing that team process, but then it gets handed off to the team itself as a team comes together. And people learn to really focus on some agreements that they have with each other. For example, no side conversations or side chats. They stay and give their ideas to the whole team. That might be one. Or confidentiality, that might be another. But these are specific to each team.
Marilyn, there's a couple more questions in hand, so we might want to jump around a little.
Okay, but I'll just mention just a few elements of key charters here. They may agree to use an analytic approach, for example, if they're a technical team, that they will get research and study it, that they'll contribute what they know. And on it goes, as well as the process agreements that are so important, that everyone does real work and does their best work and contributes what they've done each week. So let's go on to next questions.
So Abdul Sattar has a hand up.
Okay.
Yes,
go
hi,
ahead.
Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn. How are you?
Fine. I'm glad to talk with you, Abdul.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to understand the difference between what you're introducing, because I'm an accredited Gallup coach. And what we do in Gallup is one-to-one, and we also do what's called corporate and team coaching. And it's very important that managers not only understand and become aware of the power of their talents, but the power and talents of their team, so that we all understand where we come from. And I totally support what you're doing, because I've done it with different companies and as an ICF coach also, and bringing in different schools. So what's what's the added value, or where would the focus be, so that we can, you know, include within what we have as Gallup or other, you know, techniques, and it would differentiate the team itself and add, as you said, into the emotional intelligence of them.
Okay. Now, the Gallup 12 competencies are very valuable, always have been, and they're a big part of understanding emotional intelligence. But it's one thing to understand emotional intelligence and another thing to create it. So the team coaching process is a very creative process. The team coach knows how to instigate future thinking, different kinds of perceptual positions that people take, how to take the team into overview so that the team itself starts to think from the future looking back, for example, or into the process of thinking from the point of view of the customer, which you probably spend a lot of time with, and that's an area of best practice. But the key thing is to know systematically what the team needs at what point, because there's different stages. You probably heard the old team frameworks around formulation and momentum and so on, that people at different stages of the team can be brought in different ways. So we're always creating the team mind, if you like, not just through adages and knowledge of what should be there, but through really getting a result right now with one specific project, one specific way, where different people have different expertise and knowledge, where you have to work with people who may not be that comfortable to work with. And that's often the case at the beginning of a working team. Yeah.
If I might add just slightly to that, because in some ways, the question I'm hearing is kind of like, what is team coaching? Because there's the word team coaching has been thrown around an awful lot in the last 5-10 years. So as an ICF professional, we always want to come back to the new ICF core competencies, because they define, and collectively as the ICF body, we are defining what is team coaching and what is not team coaching. So for example, consulting or mentoring, clearly there's a differentiation because we're asking versus telling. So in terms of the coaching mindset, we're talking about creating a team in which there is an agreement to ask more than tell. And of course, in any business environment, you might have a balance because leaders want to lead and they like their telling, but creating a culture where the culture is based on asking high quality questions, and we as a team agree to work that way. The other magic word I think we should include here is facilitation. For many years, facilitation and team coaching were kind of the same thing, but the ICF has made a very strong effort to differentiate those two things as separate. So what separates ICF team coaching versus facilitation is a long-term transformational relationship with the team. So an ICF team coach is working with the team to develop them over time. They're using tools and processes. So for example, a professional facilitator might just stand in front of the room, do a little bit of drawing, keep the conversation flowing and keep the dialogue going. But at the end of the day, they leave and they don't have a strong relationship or long-term embedded relationship with the team. So that long-term developmental relationship where you're aligning around projects, goals, business outcomes, and the development of the team is what defines an ICF team coach. And at Erickson, we've done our best to align with that. Abdul Sattar, I don't know if we answered your question. That's a very long answer. Did we answer your question?
Perfectly, beautifully summarized. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Marilyn, back to you. There's more questions too.
Okay, well, let's go on for a few minutes and then we'll go back to the questions. One of them we're going to address right away, which is the difference between individual, group, and team coaching. We spoke to that a little bit in terms of individual coaching being one-on-one. It's focusing on a person's private and personal goals, whereas the team coaching is often focusing not only on the person's personal goals for the company and their personal goals as a leader, but the capacities of the team to actually bring those abilities through the doorway of individuals and develop those capacities as a team. So it's very developmental. It very much differs then from group coaching, which is coaching individuals more or less one-on-one with others watching, but not in the context of the whole team spirit. The team is being coached as an entity in team coaching. Who you are as a team coach is someone coaching the whole team.
Just to add to that a tiny bit, I think around 2005, for me as a team coach, I kind of had a aha moment. I'd been coaching one-on-one for about 5 years, and I suddenly realized, oh, you can just ask a question to a group of people and they'll respond. Like whoever needs to respond will raise their hand and say what they need to say. And so a lot of the one-on-one coaching tools and skills and mindsets you can just apply to team coaching. So rule number one, team coaching is exactly like one-on-one, except for rule number two, it's completely different. And what makes team coaching so different is kind of the chaotic energy. One-on-one coaching is very intimate. We're going into an intimate inner space of growth and awareness. Whereas team coaching is kind of the opposite. The team, you're always working with a group. You never know how the people in the group will react. You don't know how aligned they are. Maybe there's some conflict. So as a team coach, you kind of have to be ready for anything. and you have to be mentally prepared for a lot more chaos. So that's the very first piece of advice, is just be mentally prepared for a lot of chaos in the team coaching process. It's one challenge to get the team moving, because the energy is very low at the beginning. Then they get excited and the energy gets out of control. So it's all about managing the energy. Marilyn?
Okay, thank you. Now we're leading into two important conversations. One is what we call the team arrow, which is about managing to get a result in terms of the projects the team is working on in a specific time frame. There's two key areas. One is the development of people, call that the vertical dimension, team development. And the other is the results, which is, Paul just briefly showed the arrow, which is goal development. And we are working with team high performance, which combines both. And we're doing it by, first of all, keeping their attention on the goal, absolutely. And that means the arrow of results, that meeting, what is going to be accomplished, who's going to do what, how is the work going to be divided, what measures need to be put in place. All of that is about that meeting and its results. But we're seeing the team development over time, and that includes the capacity of the team to move in a direction we call dialogue. And dialogue is very different than one-on-one coaching. With one-on-one coaching, people may ponder for a moment about what their aims are or how they might do it. But here we've got a whole lot of people pondering together. And so it's very important to hold the context of dialogue. That means we as team coaches are constantly assisting people to regard each other as colleagues. That's important. Suspend their assumptions about each other, because people come in with, masks on because they're used to being judged by each other. And therefore they don't often feel safe enough to contribute their best. So in dialogue, we're assisting people to see each other and feel each other as colleagues, and to suspend their former assumptions, to really welcome the contributions, because people have different styles, very different styles. Some people are great visualizers, and we need to bring in that vision that can assist the whole team to grow. And we as a team coach assist the team to vision with that person. And some people are great developers of methodologies or strategy thinkers. So all of this is part of the team coach's mandate. And at the very same time, dialogue needs to be playful. We need to keep the energy engaged and fun. We need to keep people, and fun, by the way, is rather relevant. People need to want to be in the team and look forward to the team. Very soon, people come to work because they love being on the team. They love their experience of being part of something that genuinely is contributing to the whole company, where they're respected, where they're seen, and they take on a team identity. So we're briefly showing you our arrow, which is the performance model for a team meeting. We'll move, I think, next to the wheel. Let's go to the wheel next, Paul, and show what we feel are the elements of the program. Then we can go back to your questions again. Yeah, the wheel, please. So what do online teams do best? Well, one of the things you as a team coach can assist people with a lot is visionary explorations, because once somebody catches a vision, other people can grow it. And it's kind of interesting with dialogue. I sometimes call it the dialogue clothesline. Somebody gets an idea and they've got a really good idea. But as soon as I finished speaking, everybody's been looking at their version of that idea with them. And somebody hangs another part of that idea up on the clothesline. Everybody now sees that idea with new elements in it, and so on. So the visionary aspect can work very quickly, and people can grow expert ideas profoundly. This is that team intelligence I was talking about. We need to know how to support that process. And as a team coach, we're constantly assisting people to spread their abilities out, to see more and more of the potential of the project they're working on.
So a good way to think of this is, you know, a team coach is always working as an ideal brainstorming agent. You want the quality of the best brainstorming session you've ever had in your life. You want that to kind of naturally be present in the background of the team.
Yeah. And that leads to mission development, the next one here, if you follow around. We're looking at how that team is unique, that it has its own purpose, that it has its own functional process, and the people can be proud of their ability, their mission with the company. Now that's different from the company mission. So we assist the team to go from vision to mission. And we're constantly, as I mentioned, working with dialogue. What we do as a team coach is often recap various processes that we've just seen and heard. So we assist the team to stay on track. Because as you know, a team can jaunt off one direction with one person or another. So they've got a particular aim to accomplish that meeting. And we're constantly keeping the eye on the ball. We notice the kinds of conversations they're having. What kind of conversation is being most important for the team right now? Are they expert team talking about specific possibilities? That involves one kind of meeting. Are they an innovation team building a complex process? I've worked with many innovation teams that are building something where every single person is an expert and every single person thinks they should run the meeting. But in fact, they all need each other's expertise. We're working with accountability. Are people doing what they say they're going to do? The team becomes accountable, and then people become much more accountable within the time frame to implement and get things done. We train people in effective debriefing. There's a lot to effective debriefing. This is something that's a little bit different than with individual coaching, which can be fairly simple debriefing. With individual coaching, we're working with what worked well, how might it be even better? But with team debriefing, we're pulling in lots of key aspects that allow people to genuinely see the future, even as they finish with one piece. Now, here's a really important one, effective whiteboarding. Now, here, there's going to be, perhaps we'll have time later, some emphasis. Paul is doing some whiteboarding right now.
I think that's the point, is that I'm doing a demo of whiteboarding right this second.
Just a little bit demo.
It might seem like, oh, Paul is just doing some silly little drawings on the screen. But those silly little drawings have a very specific purpose.
Indeed. Anything that we do in motion is much more effective than a PowerPoint. PowerPoints are flat, finished, completed pieces. But when we're drawing on a whiteboard, and I often draw on the whiteboard behind me, just as if we're in an on-site team meeting, or we put up people's ideas and we move them around, or we mark on them, that actually shifts things in the corpus callosum, which usually keeps the left hemisphere and right hemisphere apart. The left hemisphere tends to work with routines, this is what we know already, this is how we're doing it already. But the right hemisphere, the right hemisphere is much more engaged when we're asking open questions. As some of you know, the whole brain lights up. People think more effectively. And the whiteboarding tools, when we're moving things, when we're showing whole systems, when we're assisting people to get big picture, suddenly people get ideas that they haven't had before. So you as a team coach, will hopefully go into a little of this, can do a lot to create effective whiteboarding when you understand the elements.
I'd love to just add a little to that. I think maybe almost 8 years ago or 9 years ago, I was working in Oman, and they were the king was building an airport, and I worked with a team of 60 engineers who were in charge of the airport, and their airport was behind schedule and over budget, as many large projects in the Gulf end up. And so we worked together for almost 3 months, and we did a lot of whiteboarding. We had many sessions where they would just put the timeline out, they'd put out the budget elements, and we got them talking. And our goal was to get the project back on budget and back on time. So we were always looking for the solution, the breakthrough, and any barrier, something that would be slowing the project implementation down. And we'd focus in on the barrier and try to whiteboard and brainstorm a solution to that, whatever that problem or barrier or challenge is that's slowing down the project. Let's fix that today. So I really challenge you to make the team coaching process as relevant and focused as possible. And this whiteboarding is kind of the ultimate tool, especially for technical people like engineers.
Okay. Yeah, and there's a lot of skill to it, actually, because online we use Miro and Mural, various ways to get people to develop ideas together. It's as if you've got online sticky notes and everybody's working together with different areas of the questions they're asking. It can then move out of the meeting per se, but people can work all day as an agile team, adding bits so that everyone in the whole meeting can see all of it, which is what we want. We need movement, we need whole thinking, and we need what we call coach position or overview position on where we are now, what we're getting done, and how it all fits together. Now, we call this clear solution focus. Solution focus means we keep attention on what we want rather than what we don't want. It's very, very easy to get pulled into the negatives of what won't work. And we need 5 positives for every negative. You probably know that, to keep people inspired. People easily get caught by different kinds of what doesn't work thoughts. And then they start to lose that motivation, which comes from holistic, whole brain processing, where we see and hear and feel a whole lot of potentials all at once. You probably know moments when you've been very inspired, and we want to build that further into the team every chance we get. So that's what I believe are the essential elements of team coaching. Any questions at this point, since it's
We just said a lot, so let's get some comments.
Yeah, and then we can go on to whiteboarding. Anyone, or on to whatever your questions are. I think there was a couple from the earlier.
Yes, there were some questions previously asked.
So how do you make sure the teams are engaged in the coaching session when the coaching takes place online?
Oh, well, we started a little of that. We asked you to please be present. We also use various team processes where people work together and they literally whiteboard together. I mentioned Miro and Mural, so that even though you might not be seen, your contributions are constantly being engaged. We use all sorts of team arrow processes, which keep people enjoying the process. So they don't go back behind their screen and listen in while somebody raps. No, they're getting involved in very specific processes. It's active. So we focus on active engagement all the way.
Just to add to that, one of the most useful things to do is picking the focus of the conversation. You know, if if what you're talking about, your job depends on it, your income depends on it, the success of your project and your team depends on it, you're going to engage and you're going to be listening. Versus a lot of other processes where it's kind of introduced like a silly workshop exercise, like HR wants to play a game, so they want you to do some silly thing, and it has nothing to do with your day-to-day business. So making it as relevant as possible is the key to engagement. And Abraham has his hand up, Marilyn. Let's listen to his question.
Please.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, everybody. Good evening to you. Well, what I see, I've just finished one introductory course about team coaching. And what I see really as team coaching will be very, very challenging than one-to-one coaching, in a way that it requires the coach to be, wearing different hats. What the ICF core competences says that different modalities. And this is, I think, it will require from a team coach, to be an expert as a facilitator, as a mentor, as a consultant, so I think this is very challenging than the one-to-one coaching.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Can I just add a little to that?
Sure.
Sometimes so for example, in one-on-one coaching, you listen, you don't interrupt your client, you ask questions. And team coaching, sometimes you have to be a bit of a boss. You have to be a traffic cop and say, you stop, you go, you stop. So, and sometimes there's a conflict, and you actually have to be a bit of a boss and say, okay, you have an agreement to respect this person. You have an agreement to respect this person. So, Abraham, your comments are really, really kind of appropriate. There are many hats and many roles. It's a very dynamic process. Marilyn, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would add presentation skills and facilitation skills, as he's talking about. We're basically like the conductors of an orchestra. A big orchestra has got lots of different instruments and different sections of the orchestra. The violinists need to work together. The different kinds of instrument groups need to work together. And we are constantly noticing this whole interaction, and we're facilitating the whole, but at the same time focusing on long term. So we're looking at the score of the orchestra. The score needs to be in place. So it's not just the playing right now, it's the long-term score. Is that being actually invoked, and is the result being created? Okay, I'll be quiet here for a moment. Any other questions before we go on? Someone's saying, Abdullah is Abulala is saying, I believe in team coaching, we discover the strengths and blind spots within a team, which leads to a higher momentum, helping high performance. And this is very much important. It's the elements of what we work with. I'm going to pass the ball to Paul here because
Sure.
someone just banging on my door. I'm in my home and I'm the only one in my home right now. So
Well, let me just add to that a little bit.
Right back.
A lot of businesses just run in a very procedural way. People have habits, they have a role, they just go through their life and their work in a very fixed way. Harvard Business Review did a 10-year study of 10,000 managers. And what they found was that 89.7% of managers basically don't do much. They don't really manage. They basically react to things. If the phone rings or you get an email or there's an emergency, you deal with it, but you don't proactively plan. So this is kind of interesting because the job of a good manager is to plan, to essentially create a future in which you want to produce a result, to create some kind of vision of that future, and to proactively manage people and processes, time and energy in order to move to that future. So a lot of business leaders have become very reactive. And, so you see lots of teams and businesses that are kind of wandering around in a very random way. They're kind of like lost in the desert. And so if you really ask the question, what is high performance? Really, what is high performance? A lot of it has to do with the capacity to work with a team, to create a future, to create a vision. And remember, any kind of planning is linked to a vision. Anytime you want to produce a result, there's always a vision of that result. Otherwise, you can't see it. If you can't see it, you can't build it, you can't make it. So we need to get the team visioning again. They see the result, they work backwards from the result, and then they commit, they align, and they take action. So in a lot of ways, it's really just like one-on-one coaching, but this is intrinsically linked to high performance. So really, team coaching drives high performance.
I agree. And I think you said it well, Paul. And it also moves people past their blind spots. Blind spots are absolutely real, as you mentioned, Abdul Sadr. It's definitely something that if somebody's controlling in any way the direction of the team gets built into the team. So we need to constantly be enlarging the vision of the team, literally. And people do move past their blind spots. Vision is the most integrative function of our brain. It's the most, amazing function, actually, that we can make these images of lively events working towards the goal. And that as we do it together, we can all see much, much more. We focus in Erickson, we focus a lot on vision because that is much more comprehensively, call it informational than words. It's more, it leads to more intelligence in the team because the vision is worth 1,000 words, as you know. We can see a lot more than if we're just listening to each other and getting into the conversation, even if it's a great conversation.
There's a couple interesting comments and questions in the chat. I'll read the first one and then you can do the second one. So Abdul Sattar said, Paul, you reminded me of my Unilever days when HR would focus on high performance teams, especially to get the year-end bonus. I spent a lot of time in China where they have very, very strong KPIs. And the interesting thing, though, is that most compensation in companies is focused on individual performance rather than team performance or collective performance. And so how you structure the compensation in an organization can be designed to really favor individualism or favor collectivism. And so, especially in China, there was a big challenge with the very strong KPIs and bonuses because we needed teams to align. The next question is for you, Marilyn. As a coach, how do we assist the team to move from political hidden inner conflicts to harmonious alignment?
Well, that's the great question we all face, because often when we start with a group, we're facing a group that's just forming, and people come in with their particular prejudices and beliefs and determinants that things are not working because of something else, that it doesn't involve them in any way. And if people would only listen to them, then the whole thing could work. So often people have a box of beliefs. And what we do and need to do is gently and persistently move through that forming phase and the storming, which happens where somebody says, well, I know what to do. I always have. You guys have been not listening to me. And actually assist them to start to see the project as a combined effort. Now, we don't do that by addressing any of these difficulties. I do not notice that's in the team meeting. I'm not focusing on somebody's residual blind spots. I never focus there. I'm focusing on the group intention and what they all want to create together. And so softly and gently, we turn negatives into positives. This is a solution focus method. We don't mention it. Somebody says, I don't want blah, blah, blah. And we say, okay, so you're looking at what we want in this area, and you're asking the question, how might we get that? So it's what we call ping pong, where if somebody throws something over the net negatively, we throw it back in the positive. And we also work with some of the fundamentals of solution-focused coaching that we teach in our coaching program, which have to do with ways that people can create a mindset where they genuinely move things ahead. Now, that's true in many coaching schools, but it's a framework that is important, particularly important in team coaching, because people can start to be insular quickly if they don't feel like they're being heard or acknowledged, or if somebody else is owning the meeting and taking it over, or and they just become passive, like they would be as if they were just a visitor. So we're moving people from being visitors to owners of that team process.
There's another embedded question in there, which is how to work with conflict. And here's the good news and the bad news. When you have a strong vision, a strong goal, and a strong purpose, conflict tends to disappear. So you could say that conflict is a function of conflict is the opposite of a vision. So the stronger you make the vision, stronger you create the team and the shared alignment, the less conflict you have. Now, there's a little bit of healthy conflict. You know, if you rub your hands together, my hands are getting hot because of friction. So we want the friction. It's an energy source. So healthy dialogue within certain limits is actually very productive. So the limit is this wonderful word, respect, you know, and the job of a team coach is to set the boundaries of respect. How do we as a team agree to work together in order to maintain respect in the team? So you can think of respect as the foundation. We're always working with respect, trust, and safety as the foundation. So a lot of the work is actually at the foundational level because people are always going to challenge that. They always have their own individual goals or their political goals. And so we're kind of fighting against the old style of decision-making where people go off, you know, a couple of the boys club get together, they secretly make the decision, then they come back and tell everyone how it's going to go. And so we want a high quality decision-making process that everyone can align on the process. Now, everyone might not agree, but in the end, we all respect the decision-making process. So you have team ownership around decision-making.
Yeah. Someone's asking about decision-making in the team coaching framework, the framework is really focused a lot on decision-making, how to integrate sort of a democratic style with a solution-focused style, how people can find their key criteria together. People need to get their criteria straight before they can decide on the next step in any decision. And so we assist people in brainstorming criteria, in getting clear on their aims and their mission. And then everything tends to fall out of that quite quickly because we've got a lot of experts on that team. But once they've got their criteria, then they can use different kinds of democratic and necessary functional divisions to get the best solutions. I hope that is a useful answer there. The team coaching framework, as we mentioned, includes a lot of whiteboarding. So you saw the team arrow, you saw the team wheel. All of those are core elements of our framework. And again, whiteboarding is another key element, especially with online team coaching. We're bringing up again methods to bring people together via vision, making the ideas as active as possible in the vision that they're sharing, moving along that clothesline, if you like, bringing things together. And we use our bodies to assist with that. We acknowledge people by actually using our hands to acknowledge the ideas they presented. So as Sarah, as bringing her ideas present, and Howdy is adding this, what happens now as we bring those together? We're also working with various kinds of whiteboarding on the backdrop of the different kinds of media that we're using. It might be, as I mentioned, Miro or mural. But in that process, we're focusing on those value words. We're keeping people in touch with their values. We're drawing shapes. Shapes are really important because a shape, say 4 quadrants or a logical levels shape is what we call it, where people see themselves climbing up, or a wheel, or even a different kind of unfolding timeline, or different kinds of tree, for example. People can hang their ideas on those. And that really allows a lot more effectiveness because people start positioning ideas and beginning to see how it all fits together. They need to see a whole system. That's why we use shapes of one sort or another. Once we see a whole system, we can keep overviewing. And in the brain, the whole system gets linked together as a whole. So you can't think of one part of it without bringing in the whole functional system. And that creates intelligence. So we also take time to draw with little energy builders like stars and suns and hearts and boxes and ovals, and we add color and we underline and we make the words stand out, and we assist them to keep using that. We use those exclamation points. We use the different signal systems. We use dotted lines to show futures, and we put things along the futures. We use happy faces and light bulbs and hearts. And all of this makes a difference as people feel themselves to be part of building that whole, because they come from different engagements. People say something, and then suddenly what they've said is now part of the big picture. You might star that, Paul. I'm just
I'm just having fun doing a little whiteboarding here as you speak.
Okay. So this takes a little time to get good at because we need to move things around. We're working at the process level of the conversation, not the content. They run the content, but we're constantly assisting them by building a process that they engage around. And that creates the team. They've got a structure now that they can see and hear and feel. They've got processes that they're engaging in. They can use those processes effectively. They can build their future elements around various components that they've agreed to. Okay, I'm going to stop at that point and invite some more questions. We're almost done. We agreed to give you a certain amount of time here, and we want to honor and really engage you as much as we can so that you look forward to actually doing this. My aim here is to have you all decide to become great team coaches. And that is a stepping out from, it starts with your questions. What might I need in terms of skills to really be able to do this? And how might I build those? Because there's a lot here: presentation skills, whiteboarding skills, team understanding of what were called blind spots, ways to move around those, ways to work with conflict. And that also is part of what we work with, because there's different kinds and qualities of conflict. So what can we address now in the last part of our program here?
Well, let's ask a question like, what has you be excited about team coaching? And maybe just answer with one word or one sentence. You could just write it in the chat, or you could raise your hand or unmute and just let's hear what has you be excited about team coaching. And Reem, you're first.
I was about to type it. Well, basically working with the energy of the group, energy of multiple people, and working with them that gets me really excited.
Thank you. And it is energetic. My gosh, I've worked with some teams where the ball is flying over the net so fast and people are engaged and there's laughter and there's cohesion and hearts get connected. Thank you.
Nair has a little skeptic comment, so maybe I'll try to address this. You know, teams don't get coached because they say they are too busy. And this whole business of busyness, you know, how many times a day do you look at your phone? How many times do you touch your phone? On average, the average information worker touches their phone 3,000 times a day. And so people are busy doing what? Most people are busy, but not really producing results. So if you actually shift the mindset, what is the difference between being busy and producing results? It's a completely different mindset. And so producing results, you know, it takes focus, it takes the attention of a team, it takes the commitment of a team. It's a very different thing. So challenge people. Do they want to be busy or do they want to be producing results? Okay, Sahara says energetic.
Great.
What makes you, what is the value of team coaching? A couple other people. The transformation from a group of strangers to a real bounded team members. Hey, a real team.
Yeah, that bonding is the critical piece, because when we bond in this area of trust, when we feel safe enough, then our whole intelligence opens up. Usually people aren't very intelligent team members because somebody's talking down to them and they feel their job is to sit there and listen. But when they're actually feeling like their role is important and they're genuinely feeling safe enough to give back, whoa, does the intelligence ever open? That's real EQ. That's real IQ as well. And that's what we're building here with team coaching.
Team as a system. And in general, you could link this to system thinking and empowering people in the team to think in terms of a system. How do they develop a process, system, and model in order to produce results? Finding value in...
by the way, I just want to mention there, a lot of big organizations say they want team coaching, but they don't understand what it is. They don't understand what it requires. And they don't, they need preparation. We need to do preparation work in the companies to actually set the stage for real teams. As soon as they have them, for example, we're working with in Erickson, about 8 large corporations who are really building team coaching. Woo, that company moves ahead because it's a whole different level of trust than when people are doing their ordinary jobs, their ordinary way, and occasionally coming to a so-called team meeting. It's not the same thing at all.
Reem.
Yes, I have a question on that. Marilyn, what are the steps to prepare an organization for team coaching? What are the prerequisites, let's say?
Well, my prerequisite is always to invite as many of their people from HR on up to effective team coaching sessions where they learn team coaching, they see demos of team coaching, they get the feeling of team coaching. And actually it comes from the inside out then. They actually understand how it works. And that takes a little while because usually people who get involved are people who are already in the coaching milieu and they understand something about coaching itself. And often those people are not at the heart of the organization. The organization sort of looks at them like, well, maybe, but they're individual coaches, so they can work with individuals. Here, this is why it's a little difficult for companies to bring it aboard. We're investing in the whole company as a bunch of potential teams. And even if we start with one team or another team, whew, it spreads. The energy does spread.
Well, I would just add to that a little bit. You know, what you need is, in order to kind of create team coaching as a culture in an organization, we need to have a purpose. So there's, you know, senior leadership generally doesn't like to change, right? So there has to be some leverage, some reason for people to give up their old habit for telling people what to do and to develop a new habit called listening and asking questions. So what is the change that is needed so much that people are willing to address that? And, you know, maybe it's a business result or a strategic result. Maybe it's a market threat or a business opportunity, or maybe a shift or change or transformation. I was working with a German company this spring that was reorganizing their entire business process from local teams to global teams. And, you know, they kind of at one level, they had a board, you know, the board told them they must change. But at another level, they just weren't competitive. Everyone knew they weren't competitive and they had to change. And it was a little bit of an existential threat. You know, we have to change. And so that kind of gave enough momentum that people were willing to kind of look at their old habits and shift. And of course, not everyone's going to change in an organization. You know, there's always a few of us older folks who, you know, the gray hair, we don't like to change. But there's always a younger group that you give them a tool like team coaching and they go, yes. And they start producing results with it right away. And once they're producing results, then everyone else kind of comes along because it seems like the way that the organization's going. So, Marilyn?
Okay, well, we're really now inviting you all to move forward with your own goals around this, because frankly, the world needs team coaching. I'm passionate about this for a reason. we've come through COVID, or we're maybe coming through COVID. We're in a new frontier of corporate development. Things have changed a lot. Climate change is hitting our life in huge ways. At least in North America, we've had a summer like we've never had before in my part of the world. People are somewhat scared, and the corporations are certainly looking at what's our role in the future. I think this is the time and the place to bring team coaching into the world. I think it's got lots of opportunity right now. I'm very willing to assist with any of you that are aiming that direction. Paul is as well. We are flag flyers for team coaching around the world. And frankly, Erickson is in 65 countries right now. So we're really beating the drums for team coaching in the companies that we're working with. We invite you guys to do the same with the companies that you work with, to fly the flag for team coaching and really energize those companies so that they move out of the humdrum as if it's going to go on the same way ever after, which it won't, and it quickly is not doing so, and start to create a future that's worth having. So that's my thoughts at this point. I invite a few more questions. I really invite you to look at the ICF team competencies. They're well worth understanding. They're well put together, and they focus on long-term teams, and rightfully so. Not just short-term facilitation. That's one thing. Some of you may be good facilitators, but building long-term self-sustainable teams is the game. It's the game for joy at work. It's the game for all of us to create a bright future. And so I want to open to the next step.
There's some lovely comments, but I'd love to hear people just say them rather than write them. So I want to open it up for a little discussion. Why is team coaching important? Why is team coaching valuable? Let's get some comments from some folks.
Yeah, and put on your video again, if you would. So if we're actually verbally commenting, we see each other.
Amal Dus has an interesting comment. Would you be willing to say that again?
Yes, hi.
Hello.
Good day for you. It seems that you have a morning. We are almost in the evening. Do you want me to answer why?
Yes, please.
Coaching the team is important. Yeah, I guess I have tried this during the COVID because we have to work distant, out of our office, and we are running a huge IT project that need to do a lot of communication and works that should be done in presence or on site. But due to this pandemic, we've been forced to do that work from our home. So why it was, the idea that I had or came to my mind that I should deal with my team as one person with one vision. Like it is like a one-to-one coaching session, so that we have to agree on one vision and we have to work toward this. So I have to work on our communications, either through emails or phone calls or team meetings, so that we all have to reach or fulfill this goal that we all aim to. So I set a clear expectation, communication channels, frequent meetings, and I have the way that I يعني behave not there as their direct manager. I was like their facilitator more than a direct manager. So I just listen to them, hear to their concern, ask them to solve things on my as they are. I give them the lead to do their task with their own time, with their own freedom, without my interfere. And one by one, step by step, I feel that they become empowered. They can take a huge decisions. And we did all the system testing during the pandemic, and which is, people said that we will fail, but we managed to success. So this is my personal story, but yet I feel that I get I used to or benefit from the team coaching, because I just had this certification from Coreach, and I'm thankful to be an Ericksonian coach. So that this is all what I want to say. And sorry, I cannot operate my camera because I opened the presentation from my phone, and the camera is disabled.
Thank you for your contribution. I just want to mention one thing, because when she's talking about getting a vision, one thing that we haven't really mentioned so far, and I'll just pass it to you in a moment, Paul, is that vision is visual. We're assisting people not to get a verbal vision, an agreed goal, but literally to see moving images of what they're doing, and making those images bright and evocative and resonantly interesting. And often that requires also that we're going from verbal to visual a lot. And when we look into the future, often it's quite vague. People don't see bright, simple, clear pictures of the future. So we're assisting them to pull things together visually until they can begin to see 5 years out. And it's a big difference between really being able to see 5 years out than getting a formal vision about what we're doing. And I'm just adding to your comments. Thank you.
And Amal, I just want to appreciate you, acknowledge you for having the courage to really step into real team leadership. And I'd like to encourage everyone to think of team coaching as a leadership system. And what Amal was describing, the way she kind of was giving more and more responsibility to her team and assisting them collectively to be accountable for the vision and for the results. I do want to kind of balance that, because, you know, there still is a place for the boss hat. You know, you as a leader, sometimes you have to put on your boss hat. And,
Right.
you know, not everyone kind of has the capacity to function at that team level. So we're not saying that this is a perfect solution to every business challenge, but we're saying if you have a team that's reasonably strong, you can take them up to high performance. And often, realistically, there'll be one or two people on that team that can't really function at that level. And they just want someone to tell them what to do and to be a boss and to kind of give them a very strong structure. So there's a little balance there, but this is a high performance leadership system. Marilyn?
Thank you.
Well, we're coming to the end here, everybody, and I just want to acknowledge you all for attending and contributing and thinking aloud and on paper about this whole process and what you want personally. It's a step-by-step process. I've been working at it for, 30 years. I was one of the first people who even mentioned the word team coaching. And I started working in multiple countries, and I've been continuing ever since. But it's something that takes building in yourself. And I really respectfully invite you to build all the skills of being a great team coach. It's not only a good career move, and it is, it's really a great personal move for understanding the way thought works and the way people can be together in a an agreed consciousness and culture where they truly trust each other. And that's unusual in our world today. It's really unusual. We need to build trust. So I thank you very much for being coaches. I thank you very much for being team coaches, those of you that are, and really interested in becoming team coaches for those of you that are taking the next step. I want to acknowledge Reem and her team, Sarah and others who are here. And I want to acknowledge Paul for his carrying of the ball with me. And thank you all for participating. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn, so much for such a valuable session. Thank you, Paul. Multiple important points have been really clarified for us today about team coaching and how to develop it, and be a team coach, and how even we prepare the organization for such a very important dynamic service, or I would call it a service because this is something that we really offer, and it's an important service for our organizations. Thank you so much for your time, for your valuable time and valuable input. And thank you everyone for being here. Don't mind that bird that is going on. Thank you everyone, and really, really, truly a pleasure for having you all.
See you in the team coaching workshop, and Salah.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you all. مع السلامة.
شكرا لحضوركم. مع السلامة.
مع السلامة.
Assalam.
Thank you all. مع السلامة.
السلام.